Hey, BCC here, and welcome to week 2 of the VDL. This week we're playing against the Celadon Stuffles. So we're currently 1-0, and we're hoping to start the season off with our second win, which would be really nice here. So with this, we can see the teams, my team on the left and their team on the right. So their team is pretty scary. They have a fairly fast mode with like rain and iron bundle to do a lot of damage with water coverage. Iron bundle happens to be one um, point of speed faster than my flutter main, which means that if it has boost energy for a speed boost, it's guaranteed to outspeed flutter main. So it can definitely be a little bit annoying in that aspect. In addition to that, they actually have a slower Trick Room team than me. They have Bronzong, they have Jugalgi, and they also have Palisand, all that low underspeed my entire team. And if they can get Trick Room up, those will be really annoying in Trick Room. So those are kind of the big things I need to focus on dealing with. Is they're really fast, rain mode, and then that, and then they also have Tauros, which can intimidate some of my physical attackers, which can also be pretty annoying. And so with that, this is kind of what I decided to bring to deal with that. So one Pokemon I kind of didn't mention the thing, which I probably should have, is they also have Brute Bonnet, and Brute Bonnet is a very bulky Pokemon that also threatens to spore my team. And Spore is a very powerful move, makes my team go to sleep. So Hariyama seems very good because one, it's reasonable Trick Room speed. Obviously, it doesn't underspeed any of their Trick Room sweepers, but other than their sweepers, it's pretty good. And Guts with Flame War allows me to be immune to sleep powder or like spore going to sleep by already being statused, which is a really big deal. In addition to it, allows me to get fake out, in which they don't have great fake out answers outside of some mediocre Pokemon. And then we get the Drain Punch and Knockoff, which does pretty much good damage to everything. And then we have the Bullet Punch, just to hit a little bit of Pokemon like with priority based moves. Terra is still not really for the damage boost, but mainly to survive a hit from a hurricane and psychic coverage from that I expect to see. Next, we have the Electrode. I'd strongly considered Electrode with Choice Scarf to guarantee outspeed booster energy boosted Iron Bundle. However, I decided to just go with the Assault Vest. With the Assault Vest, I should be able to take pretty much any attack from Iron Bundle, and then with Thunder, I should one hit KO it. Even with Volt Switch, I should one hit KO it. And then same with Pelipper, I should actually outspeed Scarf Pelipper and be able to one hit KO it with Volt Switch or Thunder. Volt Thunder just obviously just does a little bit more damage, especially if they Terra or if there's something like a Wakan Berry. Next up, we have this pretty standard Breloom with Technician, Focus Sash with Spore, Bullet Seed, Mach Punch, and Zid Headbutt. Spore, is a very powerful move. Bullet Seed hits lots of things on their team for pretty good damage. The Mach Punch is both priority and fighting coverage that hits like a couple of their important Pokemon for reasonable damage, and then Zid Headbutt. The big Pokemon that hits is Dragalge, but it also is reasonable damage into any Poison Terra type Pokemon they have. In addition, we have Terra Psychic, so I can take Psychic coverage a little bit better and to increase that damage from that Zen Headbutt. Next up, we have Flutter Mane. So this week, Flutter Mane has the boost energy, so I'm actually going to speed boost. However, I'm not expecting to outspeed a boost energy boosted Iron Bundle, so I actually have it pretty bulky, so it should be able to take quite a few hits from more mainly special threats, but even some of the physical moves, I should be able to take at least one hit. That might be a little bit surprising. So I'm Terra Fairy. The reason why I'm Terra Fairy is because a neutral Moonblast with Terra Fairy should one hit KO Iron Bundle, even if it tears into something else. And so that's definitely kind of a way to just get a guaranteed one hit KO on Iron Bundles if it's not Focus Sash. And then I have Thunderbolt if they've already teared or I read them not tearing, or for either Pelipper or Iron Bundles, and then just Shadow Ball to hit the rest of the Pokemon for reasonable damage. Next up, we have Iron Treads, which is a Pasha Berry to take moves from rain boosted Hydro Pumps from Pelipper mainly. We got Body Press, Knockoff, Stomping Tantrum, and Iron Head. I strongly considered replacing one of these with Volt Switch, or I might end up switching one of them for Volt Switch before the beginning of the match. We're specifically Terra Grass to both take damage from those ground moves, and the water moves better. Also prevents me from being spored, which is a big deal. And then finally, we have Swalot. Swalot is kind of my big answer to Trick Room if if I think that they're going to be able to get Trick Room up very consistently. And the idea behind it is mainly Iron Ball lets me outspeed anything on their team. I can encore the Pokemon that set up Trick Room and undo it, or I can just yawn spam the Pokemon while they're in Trick Room and slowly do it. And then we just have Terra Dark, so I don't get hit by psychic moves. In addition, we have Fling. So in the last turn of Trick Room, I can actually fling it to outspeed the Pokemon that are Trick Room Pokemon, and also to pretty good damage, especially if I Terra Dark. And so that's my team. And with that, we can get into their team. This is what they ended up showing me before the start of the match. As I've said before, we reveal our Terra types at the beginning of the match right before we start. And these were the Terra types. So first up is Tauros with Terra Steel. This is really relevant if I have Flutter Mane in front of Tauros. Iron Bundle, which is really relevant specifically, and the fact that it likely has a Terra Blast with Terra Ghost to hit my Flutter Mane for very good damage, and also can't be faked out if they Terra. Dragalge being Terra Dragon means that my Flutter Mane and Iron Treads are going to be very good as a switch-in into possible Dragon moves, and Iron Treads likely can take out Dragalge pretty easily since it's not going to be Terra Water and doesn't get that adaptability Terra Water coverage, or like in Terra Fire with Terra Blast or something like that. So I mean, Iron Tread should be able to deal with it pretty well. Pelipper is Terra Grass, which is very relevant. That means I can actually use electric moves into it without being concerned that it's going to do 0 damage. However, we also can't sport as consistently. Next up, we have Bronzong with Terra Grass. Similarly, we can't sport as consistently. However, most of its weaknesses are still at least neutrals, so that's definitely helpful. So Shadow Ball still going to be neutral. Like fire coverage, dark coverage is still going to be neutral. So it mainly seems to be an answer to Spore on my side. And then finally, we have Brute Bonnet, which is Terra Fire. This is definitely going to be relevant in some of my damage, but it doesn't seem that big of a deal because I don't have many moves that are going to be resisted by fire. And so mainly seems like possibly an offensive choice with maybe a Terra Blast. And so with that, let's get into the match. So here we are for game 1. So looking at the Pokemon they brought, this is pretty much more or less what I was expecting. And the main lead I was thinking was basically leaning Hariyama. This is in particular relevant because they didn't bring their fake out Pokemon. And so Hariyama is pretty much a clean fake out no matter what. In turn 1, the only Pokemon that I can't fake out is Iron Bundle if they Terrestrialize. And so the other question is what I want to bring next to it. I'm thinking Flutter Mane because Flutter Mane only can be outsped by Iron Bundle if it has booster energy. And if it doesn't get outsped, it does really good damage to pretty much everything on their team. Obviously, they can Terra some of these Pokemon to take them a little better, but they don't Terra. I can pretty much one-shot almost everything on their team other than Bronzong and Dragalge. And so that's why I think Flutter Mane's pretty good. And then in the back, it's basically just deciding what I think is going to be reasonable in the back. I think Swalot's pretty good if I'm expecting them to be in Trick Room quite a bit, but if I don't expect them to get Trick Room up, it's not particularly good. And so I decided to just go with Breloom and Iron Treads and see how they expect to get Trick Room up. Because if they don't get Trick Room up, then these are definitely the best 4. And so with that, let's get into the match. So my opponent leads Iron Bundle and Bronzong, and I lead the Hariyama and Flutter Mane. So here we see that my boost energy goes first, which means that they are either not booster energy or are slow with me, and we see that they aren't boost energy. So with this means Flutter Mane likely outspeeds. And so I definitely want to try to kill this Iron Bundle and prevent Trick Room at the same time. So Fake Out is the easiest way to prevent Trick Room. And then Terra Moonblast is the safest way to kill Iron Bundles in case they Terrorize. I could always go for Shadow Ball, but it wouldn't kill unless they do Terra into Terra Ghost. And so I don't want to risk that. In addition, if I don't kill, for example, the Focus Sash, I should be able to take a Terra Ghost from them as well if I Terrorize. Then we Terrorize the Flutter Mane, and we get the Fake Off out, doing okay damage with the Bronzong, and they end up actually outspeeding me and going for a flip turn. So this actually means that they are Choice Scarf on their Iron Bundle. Definitely surprised me a little bit because I wasn't really expecting them to outspeed me unless they were Boost Energy, and instead they were just Choice Scarf. So definitely caught me off guard. I don't know if I would have played the turn too much different if I knew this, but definitely was not something I expected once they didn't reveal that. But with this, we are able to get a Moonblast into the Strigalgi, which should do good damage. And now you see it's a pretty clean 2-hit KO into the Strigalgi. And so overall, a pretty good turn because they did very minimal damage, and I got 50% damage into a pretty good Pokemon on their team. And so here I just checked the Pokemon on the back and I realized I really need to prevent Trick Room from going up with this Bronzong. And so I should go for the double up, in which I do the knockoff. And I consider going for like a Moonblast in case they Terrorize, because it's going to do more damage if they do Terrorize. And I don't know if knockoff kills if it doesn't. Instead, I go for a Shadow Ball. And I definitely think this is a misplay for two reasons. One, if they Terrorize, this probably doesn't kill. And two, as we see, we get a Protect, which is a huge turn for me here. Two, the other issue is if they are a Ghost Resist Berry, as we see here, knockoff is no longer going to get the damage boost from knocking the item off. And so this is definitely a misplay because this Shadow Ball here, making them lose their item, means that this knockoff doesn't kill, where actually knockoff would have killed even if I didn't double up at all um, by itself if they had an item. But so definitely a really bad turn for me in that aspect. But even though I made the correct read that they were going to protect, and I was noticed the Pokemon I was in particularly concerned with was the Dragalge, which is definitely happens. But so with this, we need to figure out what's going to happen. And at this point, I'm just checking the speed tiers, and Dragalge is in fact slower than me. And so the idea is, how am I going to deal with this if they are gonna do? And I know I don't have the greatest switch in. I could switch in Iron Treads and hope, but I decided to just go for the knockoff and hope I can survive an attack from Dragalge. However, they just terrorized into Terror Track and Dragalge, which means this is 100% going to kill the Hariyama. Uh, and it's slower base speed than my Hariyama. So really bad turn. I had to protect the Iron Bundle because I know any Iron Steel move should kill my Flutter Mane, and so Flutter Mane had to protect because it would die from a Bronzong here. And as we see, they do have Gyro Ball, which is a one-hit KO onto my Flutter Mane. And we see that I'm actually faster than them in Trick Room and get the kill on Dragalge, which is huge. I found out later that they misgened in their Pokemon, and that was supposed to be Min Speed. If that was Min Speed, I would be at a very bad disadvantage because Trickman would be up, and my Hariyama would probably be dead. Assuming they just hit a Dragon move into that, which seems like the obvious play from them. But now at this point, I'm actually in pretty good shape because, they lost their Terra and they are in Trick Room, in which Hariyama is actually faster than everything on their team except Bronzong, and they have a Pokemon that is weak to fighting in front of my Hariyama. They end up revealing boosted energy on their Brute Bonnet, and it has an attack boost. And so this is where their boosted energy is. So here now I'm in a really good shape because Dragalge's gone, and I can just go for a Drain Punch and just switch into either Breloom or Iron Treads. I decide to go into Breloom here because the following turn I should be able to kill the Bronzong with a Mach Punch or Brute Bonnet with a Mach Punch, despite being in Trick Room. Switch into the Breloom, and they end up going for Hypnosis into the Hariyama spot. I don't know if this was a read or a misclick. Maybe they're trying to go into the Flutter Mane spot, reading a switch in, which would be a smart move. However, I end up getting a crit onto the Brute Bonnet, getting the one-hit KO. I'm 100% sure that crit mattered at this point. But with that, I am in an absurdly big advantageous position, and there's not much they can do to win from this point. So now we just kind of need to just finish up this game because we know they have a Choice Scarf Iron Bundle in the back, which is faster than everything on my team. And because Trick Room's up, it's pretty much done for. And now it's just basically deciding what the correct moves are. And I decided to go for the Drain Punch on the Bronzong and the Bolt Seed onto the Iron Bundle. Obviously, I think it could be switched up the targeting. I'm not sure. However, I don't think that Drain Punch necessarily kills. However, we see they go for a Gyro Ball. Drain Punch does kill the Bronzong, and the I should be able to kill the Iron Bundle here if I hit 3 or more hits with the Bold Seed. Even 2 might kill depending on how bulky they are. And we see we get 1 just short of the 2-hit KO. We get 2, and we get the third one getting the kill. So this ended up being a 4-0. However, if they ended up hitting or not being miss EV'd, this game would have been a lot closer and maybe even would have gone their direction with that. With Trick Room going up, I definitely think I misplayed a little bit by going for the double up that I did, and I probably should have Moonblast. It plays better around a Terra and a possible Berry, which ended up getting them Trick Room up, and then giving them that situation where if they did have slow Dragalge, they probably win. But with this, we are up game one. So let's get into game two. Here we are for game two. So after game one, I don't expect them to set up Trick Room because Hariyama is the slowest thing in Trick Room outside of Bronzong. And so I'm expecting them to lead their rain mode. And with that, Electrode looks a lot better. So in addition to that, we can either lead Hariyama, go for fake out like it has, or we can lead in the back for the later game and lead something like Fluttermane or Breloom. And I decided I like Breloom because it does threaten both these Pokemon with spores or bullet seeds. I do not want Swallow. And so the next decision what I want, I think Hariyama is definitely the next obvious pick because Hariyama is, I think, it's like pretty much the best Pokemon in my team this match. And then I decided to go with Iron Treads. I considered Fluttermane. However, Fluttermane can be really awkward, especially if they get speed boosted moves or Iron Head with the Tauros, and so I decided to go with Iron Treads because I think it's a little bit reasonable. And with that, let's get into the game. So my opponent leads Tauros and Iron Bundles. So this is also one of the reasons why I think it was reasonable for me to have the Hariyama in the back because I don't want to get intimidated. And so here it's a pretty obvious turn for me, which is just go for a Volt Switch, which should kill the Iron Bundle and switch me out, or and then just either go for a switch out or spore into the Tauros spot. I decided to go for the spore because the switch out doesn't seem the safest, especially because they could just go for like a Hydro Pump or Ice Beam into the spot, and I don't really have a clean switch into that. So they end up switching out the Tauros into the Brute Bonnet, which is actually a really good switch in for them because this actually allows their spore to be completely useless and definitely a little bit concerning here. And they end up getting a Icy Wind off, which does huge damage into that Breloom, and doing pretty meager damage into the Electrode because of the Assault Vest. However, I am able to get the Volt Switch out, and as expected, the Volt Switch does get the one-hit KO onto the Iron Bundle. And so here we can bring in the Hariyama and the Iron Treads. I decided to bring in the Hariyama because it threatens the Brute Bonnet for more damage, and it should get burned here, which means they can't spore me. Obviously, as we see, the spore misses the Brute Bonnet, which makes it a little bit sad. So here they just bring back out Tauros, and definitely a little bit awkward now that Breloom's at -2 attack and my Hariyama is at -1 attack. I can fake out, but that feels like it doesn't do too much, especially since Breloom's probably slower than Brute Bonnet now that it's at -1. And so I just go for a Drain Punch and decide to switch out into the Electrode. I could go for a Spore into the Tauros spot, but and just kind of accept that one as the loss. But I think Breloom's going to be pretty relevant in the back in the end game, especially just with priority Maka Punches into this Brute Bonnet. And we switch out the Electrode, and they just go for a Sucker Punch, which definitely really surprises me, especially because I would likely have gone for a Spore if I attacked, so it actually would have just been clean. And here we end up getting a Drain Punch into the Brute Bonnet, which somehow kills because I get another crit. The first one, obviously, there's a chance that first one would have killed without the crit. I don't know the exact bulk on the Brute Bonnet, but that one at -1, 100% never kills. That is a huge crit for me. It not only gets that kill there, it also brings Hariyama back up to max HP minus the little chip of burn. However, because they went for Sucker Punch, if I just stayed in this board, I would have been in really good shape. However, now it's a 2v4, and I'm pretty good shape. And the big question is which Pokemon am I threatened most with, and who should I kind of deal with? I definitely expect a Hurricane for Hariyama, so I definitely think I should Terra Steel the the Hariyama in order to take this Hurricane from a Pelipper. And the question is basically, do I want to just go for a Bold Punch and like a Thunder, try to get a kill on a Focus Sash Pelipper? However, if they Terra, it gets a little bit annoying. Or I can double up into Tauros. I decide to go for the double up, and it should kill Pelipper before it moves, and even if it has a Focus Sash, unless they Terra. This is definitely a play I wouldn't have gone for if if Pelipper was Terra Ground though. And as we see, they actually do in fact terrorize the Pelipper. I definitely think that honestly, maybe the better play would have been Drain Punch the Tauros and Thunder into the Tauros, um, because even if they do Terra, that pretty much just kills them. Because but with this, even though they Terra Grass, this should do pretty good damage because Pelipper is mainly physically bulky. It's not super especially bulky, and we see that this Bullet Punch goes into the Pelipper. It's no longer resisted, but it ends up doing not great damage. Honestly, I thought it was going to do more damage, and I honestly thought this Thunder was going to do more damage. However, another double up will kill, and they go for a Raging Bull into Electrode, and Electrode survives that, showing that it's pretty good bulky, and the Hariyama takes this Hurricane quite well. So now we're definitely in an okay shape. And now the big question is do we expect the Pelipper to have a protect or not? If it does not protect, the double up should guarantee the kill, and it should go for before them, and then the game will be pretty much over. However, if they do have protect, then I can get really massively punished. And so I strongly consider going for the double up into Pelipper, and I decide that it's probably a little too risky, and that I should go for a double up into the Tauros. I definitely think that I've been thinking about this. I was thinking about this slowly. Which is it too risky for that double up? And Thunder into the Tauros makes sense. However, I decided to go into the Tauros, just go with two moves. I think because I was rushing a little, I probably messed up a little because I think I should have gone for a Bullet Punch into Tauros, because the obvious play for Tauros here is probably just go for a Raging Bull. We end up getting a Thunder off, and it does pretty good damage, but they did go for Raging Bull as you would expect. And this is why Bullet Punch probably would have been better. Even if I went to the Pelipper, I probably should have Bullet Punch. However, we did get some damage on the board, which is pretty relevant. And so now the question is Breloom or Iron Treads. I think Breloom is the right, or Iron Treads is the right answer, because it should be able to take an attack from either of these two Pokemon, and is actually outspeeds both of these Pokemon, which is also really big. And so we bring out the Iron Treads. And so now I decide to just go for a knockoff into the Pelipper to try to get the kill here, and then the Thunder into the Tauros. I definitely think that I maybe should have just doubled up one of these, because I outspeed both of these with both my Pokemon, and they just protected with Pelipper the previous turn. So I think going for the double up was probably the correct play. We do get a pretty good chunk of damage, and we get a paralysis, which, this was my third Thunder, and it's 30% chance to paralysis, which is pretty reasonable. However, we go for the knockout, and it just misses off, which is why I probably should have gone for the double up just in case. However, and they connect to a Hydro Pump, but with the Pasha Berry, I'm able to survive, putting me in a pretty good shape. And they get fully parried. I don't think this fully para actually mattered too much, because I am gonna it would have killed one of my Pokemon, but I have Breloom in the back, and Mach Punch kill Pelipper, and then either of the other Pokemon should be able to kill Tauros from this range. And so at this point, I just go for the Thunder and the Body Press into the Pelipper and Tauros respectively. And with this protect, we see that I'm going to get the kill with the Electrode onto the Tauros with another Thunder, and the protect's going to prevent me from getting the kill. But next turn, I should be able to get a kill with one of these two Pokemon, since both of them outspeed, and we should be able to get the nice clean 2-0. This game definitely was really lucky on my end. I got the two crits both into Brute Bonnet were huge. I got Brute Bonnet basically did nothing. Actually, it did literally nothing this in both two games, because it just died before it did a single point of damage or a single status move, entirely because of those crits. In addition to that, the Dragalge not being min speed basically completely turned off Trick Room as being a reasonable option for them, meaning that I could completely guess what they were going to do game two, and also just made game one go in my favor from what probably would have been maybe a 1-0 in my favor, or maybe even a loss, into a 4-0, because because Dragalge ended up being slower in Trick Room to the Hariyama. So definitely a little bit sad, that a little bit luck on my side, and a little bit of bad ginning on there, or the gym bot not doing what it's supposed to. Definitely made it sad. However, I am happy to start off the season 2-0 plus 4. Definitely a great start of the VDL, and hopefully I can continue it. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.